In the tapestry of life, where every thread holds a story, America in Black and White emerges as a haven for the voices echoing through the heart of our communities. In this podcast, we wade through the rivers of our collective experiences, celebrating the vibrant hues of change brought forth by the whispers of hope and the roars of action. It's more than just a conversation. It's a journey into the heart of our society, illuminated by the light of those daring to dream and do. Join us, and let your voice be the melody that guides us toward a dawn where every color finds its place in the masterpiece of our shared destiny. Together, let's paint a future brimming with the positives that dwell in our minds and the actions that shape our world.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to another episode of America in Black and White. I'm your host, Charles King. Tonight, we're going to start the show where we're going to do a Black history reflection as well as continue to honor Women's National Month. Our Black history reflection is Zora Neale Hurston. Tonight, we honor the incomparable Zora Neale Hurston, anthropologist, folklorist, novelist, and one of the most electric voices of the Harlem Renaissance. Hurston dedicated her life to capturing the soul of Black America, our language, our laughter, our pain, our brilliance, and our unbreakable spirit. She traveled the South, documenting stories that would have otherwise been lost, preserving the cultural DNA of a people who refused to be erased. Hurston taught us that our lived experiences are literature, that our communities are archives, and that our voices, unfiltered, unapologetic, and rooted in truth, are worthy of preservation. Her legacy reminds us that storytelling is not just art, it is resistance, reclamation, and liberation. As, as we welcome tonight's guest, a man who helps entrepreneurs build, scale, and stand firmly in their purpose, we honor Hurston's belief that Black vision deserves structure, strategy, and a stage. Her work lives on in every Black creator, builder, and leader who dares to shape their own narrative. Now we'll get into, let's introduce our guest. Welcome to another powerful episode of America in Black and White, where we elevate the voices, journeys, and legacies shaping our communities today. Tonight, we're diving into the intersection of entrepreneurship, real estate, strategy, and purpose. Our guest is a man who understands that business is more than transactions, it's transformation. He knows that real estate is more than square footage, it's positioning. And he knows that entrepreneurship is more than hustle, it's alignment, discipline, and calling. Tonight, we sit down with James B. Kynes Jr., a commercial real estate broker, entrepreneur, author, educator, and strategic advisor who has dedicated his life to helping business owners turn vision into execution. From grooming industry entrepreneur to owner of Rushman Moore Commercial Real Estate Group, from business coach to author, from mentor to community builder, James embodies what it means to build with intention. This conversation is about clarity, it's about ownership, it's about the courage to answer your call, and it's about the systems and strategies that help our people build businesses that last. Let's get into it. Let's introduce James B. Kynes to the show, please. Hello,
Hey, how
sir.
you doing? Can you hear me today?
Yes, sir. I can hear you.
Awesome.
How are things going with you, sir? Welcome back to the show.
Man, thanks for having me again. I'm always excited to be around your high quality show that you offer here, man. I appreciate you. I see you grew your beard out too. I see you got your beard going on.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Actually, I just trimmed it.
You just trimmed it. It looks nice, sir. Thanks for having me again, Charles.
Yes, sir. So, is there anything you'd like to say to the audience before we get into the show?
Man, I think well, since it's my first time here, so everybody happy new year. I think we're in March now, so we can already go into the spring, so it may be a little late, but I'm happy to be here. I want to say I give thanks and glory to the Almighty for the opportunity to just add value the best way I can, the best way that He allows us to, give back to the community by adding insights and information to the community so that we can continue to grow and prosper and operate in abundance as we continue to press forward through these times.
Yes, sir. I appreciate that. And I like to start, where I like to give the audience the opportunity to learn a little bit more about who you are. And so, what I'd like to start with is, can you tell us what early experiences shaped your understanding of business, leadership, and responsibility?
What early experiences shaped my experiences from leadership? I think my early experiences started with scouts. With my father was a Boy Scout troop leader early on, and we kind of began learning about leadership, early on just through organizations where you had older men that were reaching back, kind of showing us how and things to do as young men, what life was about through organizations, through opportunities that allowed us to use, at that time, budding skill sets to eventually, transcend into life skills that allow us to, in situations, analyze them and see, what is the best course of actions that we may need to take in order to move anything forward from a position of strength. And so I think being around, those types of influences, such as my father and other coaches that molded us and molded our mindsets and molded us our mentalities into operating from a holistic perspective, not just a singular aspect. We know that life comes at us in so many different ways and so many directions. So just preparing us from all different ways of what I would say prepare adversity, and then giving you adversity, preparing you for adversity that were not expecting to deal with. So I think those are the types of things early on that puts us in position to continue to discover who we are, and what our sole purpose is as we continue to press through this time frame.
So, how did growing up influence the way you approach entrepreneurship today?
Man, just relentless, just being relentless. I think probably around my early high school years, playing sports, being in athletics and participating and competing. It really like shape that attitude of you got to go and you got to perform. You have to do what you need to do to prepare. The old saying like proper preparation prevents piss poor performances. And so, given the mindset to prepare properly, given the tools and the ingredients of what that looked like, seeing success early on, being a part of program, being a part of a culture that was promoted the ingredients that created winning, and winning as a tradition and winning as a lifestyle, and that kind of transcended into adulthood throughout. When you take on businesses, when you're an entrepreneur and you have to go out and create, whether it's a company in itself or taking over a company, but you have to get out and be about that daily hustle, identifying what that looks like for that particular call, what it is that you're doing, and doing the things that you need to do to accomplish the things that you are trying to accomplish at the end of the day. And I think that's the biggest thing, um, is doing what you need to do when you need to do it. And that's called discipline.
So, can you tell us what are some of those things, and also how does those things resonate with you today as you lead your business and you shape the form for other business leaders to become great leaders?
Well, I mean, I think as a former athlete and as a former coach, I think I'm still a coach. I think you never stop really being a coach once you begin, as kids and people that you help influence, or you help direct their path. So I think they always consider you a coach. Even in life, you have, you still consider to be a life coach. So I think some of the things that I think really help put those in perspective, as far as the difference. Being an athlete for me is like, the things like for and I say use athletics because for me athletics like transitions into like the disciplines of business. So if you're going to be an athlete, you obviously have to prepare your body, and in order to prepare your body you have to prepare your mind, because the body will do as the mind tells it. And that's the same as business, right? In order to prepare and structure and create a sound business, you have to create a sound plan. Like, so the plan being the mind and the execution being the body. Creating a sound plan, and understanding, same as your mind, right? You have to have an open mind, right? When it comes to training and it comes to preparing, and because you may get in a situation, say during a game, and the plays you ran may not be working, right? And so now what you have to do, you have to pivot. You have to figure out how can I use the talent that's available to me to change my game plan around, to the other teams, that's showing us what I would say their advantages. How can we change our game plan during the course of the game, right, to put us back in a position of strength? And so that's similar to business, right? How you write the plan, it may not fully execute how you have it, quote unquote, written, how you quote unquote see it, how you mentally have it prepared to execute it. So, do you quit? Do you say I don't want to run the play no more? I don't want to play in the game no more? Or you figure out like how do I pivot, you know, during this time? And when when you're dealing with life, you have so much, so many different things that are happening that will cause you to pivot. It's some things you can control, you may not control. I mean, we got obviously situations going on right now where 2 weeks ago, $2.95. Today is $4. All because that's happening, out of something that really you don't control at the end of the day. But you got to pivot because now you have to figure out how can I pivot, for my business during times where uncertain things are happening. And so stuff like that happens in sports, it happens in games, like things happen that you may not anticipate happening. And so preparing your mind and being in the mindset of knowing that we have a plan, but being open-minded enough and being amoebic enough to know that I might have to switch the plan up a little bit to accomplish my goal, that keeps you in the optimal position of winning, whether it's in life or in business.
Mhm. So, what was the first moment you realized you were called to build something of your own?
Oh, that's a good question. I mean, I had to always kind of I go back to uh I say my granddad was a great influence because he was an entrepreneur, right? And so, but I really didn't understand at the time like he was an entrepreneur. I just kind of knew that he worked for himself and he kind of controlled his destiny, by doing what he desired to do. I mean, early on I worked in corporate America, but I think like for me, the call for entrepreneurship came, I think it was early on. I mean, because I think my first job I worked with a guy, he was an entrepreneur. And so I'm getting all this entrepreneurial influence around me, and I'm like I'm feeling like it's going to be something for me. I didn't know exactly what that was though. For whatever reason, I just didn't know what my lane would look like. It started with for me. I had one of my good friends was an artist, entertainment artist, approached me about managing him while we were in college. Um, I would say that probably was like the first thing that said this might be our ticket into entrepreneurship. Managing my best friend, as an artist, and we started down the path, and we kind of began to do all the things that we consider necessary to help take him to that next level, as a manager, and that began to propel other opportunities for me. For example, as far as you know, I got an internship with a record label. Um, but that transitioned into me end up, selling coverage door to door and end up working my first corporate job. but I was doing all of those other corporate things while at the same time and still envisioning like because when I started managing him, I created a management company like around him, and that was kind of like the first thing, that first aha. From that began like the ideas of diversification. Like, what would we do if we really if we hit it and blew up, and we had a windfall of money come to us, a positioning that came to us? What would we do with the money? And we began like brainstorming about other ideas at the time. I mean, I remember us. It was myself, my artist, and we had a group that I was managing as well. And I remember we were sitting back. We had a powwow spot where we would go and sit and have like good conversation. We kind of strategize, talk about our next move. And I remember talking one day, and we were saying like we were having that conversation about what would we do when we blew up and we got the money. And one of the things I said I want to do was open up a men's barbershop, right? That was very like almost high end, with a men like they were cutting hair and like shirts and suits, shirts and ties, are really dressed up, really well groomed. I was um and I opened that a few years later, which was a best in class grooming out of spot for men. But we didn't know it, I didn't know at the time how that was going to happen. And so it was long as these paths of entrepreneurship, walking the path, walking the faith, that certain things began to reveal itself to you, and allows you to kind of continue to take things from one step to another. So that was probably my first the first thing that was my powwow, my aha moment into entrepreneurship. It was through doing management, artist management for one of my good friends.
So, how did your early ventures in the grooming industry prepare you for commercial real estate?
Oh man, that's a good question. So we gotta so the grooming industry was, and it will always be for me, what I would consider like my divine call into entrepreneurship. Like, for example, when I was doing the management thing, like it was entrepreneurship, but it was something that we had desire to do. I was entrenched through it because once I lock in, I'm locked in. I'm loyal. I want to win. I have a desire to see things come to a completion. Um, but that was the other thing I was doing when you talk about entrepreneurship. I was the neighborhood I was a neighborhood barber from 12 years old, and ended up kind of like being the dorm room barber when I went to college. And the corporate America time frame for me had kind of expired. I got laid off twice, selling office equipment, and I remember like just kind of like having this conversation, internal conversation, like I just don't have no desire to have my destiny in somebody else's hand. Like, and I was talking, it was a spiritual conversation. I was kind of talking to God, like I need something to do where I can control my destiny, can be in my hands, right? Didn't know what that looked like. I was just kind of talking in the wind, so I thought I was. And so I was at the time working with a business management firm, and it was kind of like a trajectory where like you know my dream job had came to me because it was entrepreneurial, but at the same time it was what I would say, it was entrepreneurial, but it was still corporate. Kind of, it was a mix in between like being corporate and being entrepreneurial in what I was doing for that organization. And the ideal thing, I was on the way home one day, and I was, just kind of frustrated at the time, to be honest with you, by what was going on, with the organization I was working with. And that's when I heard like his voice tell me to turn the barbershop. And that's when the barber career started. Like, because I heard this voice tell me to turn the barbershop. And so going into the grooming industry, it really opened my mind up. First off, really taught me humility, from a place of not understanding, doing something that you didn't fully have a plan to do. It was not my plan to be doing that at the time, right? My plan was, I was kind of operating in the plan that I had a strong desire to do. So for me, it was like almost like you interrupting what I'm trying to do. And it's like, you know what I mean? Like, for real, dude. Like, you interrupt what like when you think about it in retrospect, as you mature and you grow and you realize what this path has been taking you to, and you realize like, man, you was a real prick. Like, and it really like taught me like a level of humility that I'm so thankful, because it taught me service, right? It taught me how to serve men, how to serve people from a different capacity. Um, versus I worked in sales, bottom line dollar. I was trying to working in sales, you're trying to, make the most commission you can on a transaction. At the same time, solve a problem for a client. So it's kind of I gotta solve their problem, keep them in their budget, but I need to be able to make as much money as I can off this transaction because I get paid a commission off of it. When you go into the barbering world, in the barbering industry, it's like a complete 360. It's like a complete shift. Like, the money you make is now complete correlated to the service that you provide. And so it really taught me at the time how to humble myself and how to be obedient to what I'm being called to do. But a few years later, I had a desire to still get back in transactions. And I don't think like he really took that away from me. It was just a matter of what I needed to learn to progress into my next phase. Because the back end of being in corporate America, I really understood and I really enjoyed the process of doing business to business transactions. I was selling office equipment, but I was calling on corporations. I was calling on businesses, and I was able to talk to CEOs and presidents and controllers and the people who control how the money roll with the company, right? So those are the people who were making the decisions about whether they were going to invest into like this, piece of equipment for the, so their company can operate more efficiently. And so my desire was to eventually get back into transactions. And actually, I was working with the management firm. I was able to, now be in what I desire to do from a management perspective of, going from working with entertainers to athletes. And so transitioning into the barber game, that really like, had clients that were coming in, especially and some were investors, and they were asking like, did I have clients who, had companies or businesses that were looking for investors. And then I would have companies come in that were people, had clients that would come in, they had businesses, they had opportunity, they were looking for investors. And so I got the bright idea that, hey, I can get back into transactions by facilitating these deals from behind the chair. And my wife asked me at the time, like, how was I going to get paid from doing these transactions this way? And I was still over mine. I would get paid a percentage of the transaction because of how I got paid when I worked in sales. And so that kind of, she suggested that I look for a way to kind of firm up my security in doing those types of transactions. And that led to me meeting some young ladies who were business brokers, who advised me I need to get my real estate license if I want to do business brokerage, which business brokerage was the entity of real estate and the cross section of real estate and business sales. That intrigued me. I was interested in doing that because that gave me a leg back into transactions in a way that it opened up uh, me bringing opportunities from a more credentialed perspective to the table. And so that's what led me to get my real estate license. And fast forward, a few years later, after going through working for some real estate firms here and there, learning the business, learning the industry, I was able to branch out and open up my own firm back in 2017 once I finished with the real estate associates program.
Oh wow. So can you um give our audience like some sense of what it was like when you finally decided that you was going to do your own business where you were going to be controlling your own interests. What did that feel like, and what were some of the things that you decided to step this in order to make it work?
So the creation component for me was nothing new. Like I've created like back from when I was telling you about I started my management firm with my artists. Like that was like I would say my first company, my first brand that I created. So from there, it was just, that began the step evolution of branding and marketing. I'm a marketing major. I'm a business management marketing major, and from Mars Hill College. So that idea of creativity had never was always there for me. So from there I began I created that management company, and then eventually I created another company. Once that step, but the real estate firm was actually a step from a business management firm that I created. Once while I was barbering, I created a business management firm called the J. Rushman Group, which was going to facilitate business management, real estate, and marketing for like athletes. As we marketed and recruited, these business management and lifestyle services to this client base. Um, Eventually, once I got my broker's license and realized that I did not have to actually work with another firm. I can create my own. And once you become a broker, you can create as many entities as you desire to create, which was my allure to becoming a broker. Because once you become a broker, you can pretty much control your own destiny at the end of the day. So that took 3 years for me, just being a licensed agent, getting doing going takes to actually go and use the exam. I had actually created Rushman Moore back in like 2014, because once again I had a business management firm called the J. Rushman Group, and I had a real estate division for that business management firm. So once I got my license, my broker license, I was able to now take that real estate division and create like its own entity, where I did not have to, co-broker with another real estate firm. Like I used to work with other firms that allowed you, and they really wanted you to work with them in a capacity to where you actually, co-branded your brand with them. And so for me, it worked well because I was big on the co-brand. I wanted to make sure that I was beginning to establish a foothold for my own brand in the industry, outside of the firms I was working for, because I'm always big on if I can market for them, I can market for me. Uh, so once I created that, now you come up with the name, the Rushmore Moore name for the real estate firm was a whole thing of how do I now create this entity, create a firm that kind of can stand on its own, can substantiate itself as being, quote unquote, a minority owned firm without quote unquote saying it's a minority owned firm. And so I'm a history buff. I love history. I love storytelling. I love our ancestors for how they always transcended like the myths of our history, from generation to generation through the stories that they told, from time to time. And so I was very intrigued by the Moorish Empire. I was very enamored by just like the accomplishment for these people. I mean, you got to think like we established in the annals, like they don't want to tell you your aspect of the levels of history that you participated in. Like we just hear all of a sudden, like like we just hear it with 18. What year they came over here? 15. So we came stuff 16. We got over here. That's when we started. Then right, yeah. Now we got a deep history, and for 800 years, just speaking about the Moors, and in particular, like they took over and ruled Spain, and a lot of the culture and a lot of the culture that you see in a lot of those European countries, like it was heavily influenced by people that look like you and I. So um but they, as they conquered land and as they took over land, like unlike a lot of the it wasn't about, we're gonna go and just destroy it, take over this land and destroy it and pillage it, and what I'm saying, conquer the women, and I'm pretty sure some of that took place, don't get me wrong, but ultimately it was about creating systems. It was about improving like the land. It was about going and how can we're gonna take this land, we're gonna show these people how to really, you know, take care of themselves. They sick because they bathe in their own, feces, and they really living like very cave cave lifestyle. They don't want to tell y'all that, but hope they don't delete us, Charles, for that. But 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 anyway, you know, uh, our people went over there and cleaned things up. Let me just put it to you like that. So we had sanitation systems, we had electrical grids, we had stuff going on back in history that, they don't want to tell y'all what's going on. But, our people was geniuses in how they created these things and these systems in Spain and in Europe and stuff. And so I just wanted to plug that into our name at the end of the day. So I wanted that piece of history attached to what we were doing. And so that's how I plugged the more back of Rushman and recreated the Rushman Moore brand. Kind of us for us. We conquered and we improved the land. So it kind of had a whole real estate tie to it. And so it wasn't a new thing for me to create the brand. It was just a matter of time for us to the timing to release it and take it to the marketplace. I actually, once I finished with this program called REAP, Charles, I had, I wanted to work with a couple of, with a commercial real estate firm before I actually launched out on my own. Just because I wanted to gather more experience, so I thought I needed more experience. I needed to, I had a desire to be around, other, professionals in the industry, for however long that season, was meant to be. I don't know. I interviewed with a few firms, and I really took it as a great compliment, to hear that, we can't hire you. Like, no, we can't hire you. Like, we can't hire you. And I was like, why you can't hire me? I'm like, and at the time, people may see more on you than you see on yourself, in a good way. And so I take it as a compliment, like that. People saw something on me to say, look, you need to go do your own thing. You can do it. You have what it takes. And I mean, we what 2000 what we 2026. So man, we about to go on almost 10 years out here. And we continuously just elevating. So that's the stat step, man. Right now we still babies in the game. So we still really learning our niche in a way that we can fully benefit our community and add value to, our client base at the end of the day. And so that's where we are in our process.
Okay. Oh, there's a comment here in the chat. Um, I'll put it on the screen. It's from Stephanie Poe, and she says, "What a story."
Thank you, Stephanie. Thank you.
Um, so, can you tell us what personal values have remained constant throughout your journey?
Personal values that have remained constant throughout my journey. Man, that's a good question. I think an early lesson for me, uh, it came from my father, like early on, and my dad was real big on character and integrity. He taught us like about, he was like, he used to tell us all the time, like, hey man, you ain't got nothing but your name and your word. Like, your name and your word means so much to you, and and so it's one of the things that I've been able to take into, the business world. Again, like, the humility component. I'm just thankful, like to know that, I'm no better than nobody else. I'm thankful he taught me that aspect of humility, of really abiding by, understanding that you have purpose, but understanding that your purpose is intertwined with the overall whole. So although we're no better than anybody else, that you still are unique in your own right. So operate in your own capacity, and move in that power. And so I think just having, doing business in a way that you can sleep well, and being in a position to where, like, that you don't have to do and take on all business that does not feel, aligned with where you're, accomplishing and where you're seeking to go. At the end of the day, alignment is, I think, the biggest one of the biggest lessons at this point in time in my career. Because I've learned that you can toil, you can work hard, you can meet a lot of people, you can claim, be well known, but if it's not our purpose, in your soul purpose, then I don't think it's kind of like, in my opinion, being how you have like those phone chargers, and you can plug a charger up, but it's not the right charger for your phone,
Yeah.
and it's not the right cord, and you don't get so it's your phone read is charging slow because you don't have like the right components to charge it. So that's kind of how life is, almost like how this thing operates. Like you got to be plugged into the right thing to get the full charge out of it. Don't mean that you won't have emotion. Don't mean you won't receive energy, but I think they receive like that full blast of energy that is designed for your emotion. You need to be plugged into the right situations and plugged into and that comes through proper alignment, and that comes through discernment, and that's growth.
So let's transition over to your entrepreneurship
Okay,
a little bit more in depth, and let's talk a little bit more about Rushman Moore Commercial Real Estate Group.
okay.
What inspired you to launch Rushman Moore Commercial Real Estate Group?
What inspired me to launch? So that goes back to just the trend. I tell people, like, they ask like, what's the difference of doing residential real estate or commercial real estate? And for me, it goes back to the lesson I learned when I was working in corporate America. And and that's understanding like how you like to do business, as a business owner, and as an entrepreneur, and especially in the lane where you're operating, you're dealing with people in this kind of capacity. Like, how do you like to do business? I know for myself, I'm a creator, and I'm a business to business, mindset type person. And so for me, commercial real estate and the business brokerage component naturally gravitated itself to me, um, based on just like to do transactions. I began to like do transactions from an entrepreneurial perspective because I had, people coming in looking for, one group looking for another. I've always, operated from a facilitating capacity, from an early age, and so commercial real estate for me, it opened up because as I was operating in a business manager capacity, I wanted to be able to bring opportunities to athletes that I would be managing. Once I had started at the firm, and that firm didn't fully take off like I desired it. But it's never not like it may not come back, because now we're in a better position. Is Again, it goes back to the timing of things. But for me, commercial was, and especially once I got in the industry and start understanding like that it's only 2% minority in commercial real estate. And as a creator and as an entrepreneur, when it came to like creating a brand, I kind of looked at it as more like it's tremendous opportunity. Honestly, I looked at the 98% space that you can go get a 0.5% of that space, or you can get, in this market, you get 0.5% of a 98% pool. If it's only 2%, if we only 2% represented in the industry, like you can go out and create a niche for yourself, and and do well at the end of the day. And especially as you continue to evolve and really refine your processes and understanding like who your clients are and how you can best serve your clients. It's like for me, it was just complete opportunity to say, hey, why not why not us? Why not this season? you know, I get a lot of feedback, to be honest. Want to know, well, why you not selling residential? Why you don't do houses? I'm like, well, I was doing it, and I'm a broker, so at the end of the day, I can do whatever we choose to do. And so it's like, you don't have to not bring the opportunity just because you think we don't do it. Bring the opportunity, and we can figure out how we can facilitate it. Because we still small, we still boutique, we still the emerging firm, we still a growing business. So it's not like we turn business down, but we facilitate it in a way that we want to make sure that we put you in the right position to be taken care of. But for us, commercial was just the opportunity to say, like, if you're gonna segue and niche yourself into an industry, like, how do you desire to do that? And even go look a step further, through the REAP program is where we really understood like where our niche could fall, where we can create a niche in the commercial space. And that was through being, through tenant representation brokerage, and business brokerage. And for us, like we kind of, for me, working with entrepreneurs, it was like a way to combine like those two disciplines in a way that you service entrepreneurs from a holistic perspective, from a ground up inception perspective to a cash flow and turnkey perspective. So how are we going to best advise this client based off of what the strengths they're bringing to the table financially, and from their creative positioning at the end of the day. So I just like those the opportunity to be able to help individuals create those opportunities. Another thing, and I can also being an entrepreneur, I had working in that shop, opening up my own shop, dealing with the the landlord, dealing with the build outs, that tremendous value I felt like I can add to entrepreneurs who were looking to, find locations and site select and help guide them through those processes so that they can actually, come out on top.
So let me do a follow up on this because what I think is pretty interesting.
You good, Charles? I'm sorry. Cut that heat off. Can't make too much noise.
And so, what I wanted to do as in following up on that question, as in not seeing much representation with that number being so minute that it's 2%. What was the inspiration and the motivation that pushed you to really want to succeed in this particular industry when you started?
Man, that's a good question. Um, I think I'm driven. I think I'm overall driven. But I think like the motivation um was hearing how challenging it is. Like how, that's a tough industry. Then you start hearing about, it's a good old boy network. Like, then you start hearing about um, you know, you got to find out what you want to do, what lane you want to walk in, what are you gonna specialize in. You start, it's always like these layers of identity that people try to put on top of you so that they can pigeonhole you or peg you or say you do this and say you do that. So for us it was like um, how can we segue into the industry, and how can it's almost like how can we play the game, but play it in a way that we create our parameters while we play it. And so for us that looked like when they say, okay, how do what are you gonna specialize in? Before I was in that REAP program, um, I was kind of already doing tenant rep work. I was working with business owners already, like kind of helping them find locations. I just didn't know it was called tenant rep brokerage. And so I was operating in that level of capacity of a tenant rep broker, just didn't know it. And so once I understood like what that looked like, I said, okay, one of our core competencies can be tenant rep brokerage, right? But I still wanted to be agnostic when it came to industry. So because you can specialize, right? As a tenant rep brokerage, you can specialize and you can only do office, or you can only do retail, or you can only do industrial, or you can be a tenant rep broker who only work with doctors, or only work with beauty salons, or only work with you know any type of niche industry. Like you can actually specialize in that industry, and you become a specialist in that industry. And there's nothing wrong with that. Like it's people that do that all day, and they operate, and they do great. Becoming specialists. As a matter of fact, I work with specialists, as a broker, and that's one of the ways that we continue to move business forward and create networks. Because if opportunity comes to me, and I'm operating in a more agnostic, generalist capacity. If it's something that I need help with, I'm gonna find a specialist, and I don't have a problem finding a specialist because that's gonna help me look like I, I know how to hand off. They'll not be within my capacity, because my ultimate goal is to serve my client. And the specialist puts my client in a better position than me trying to do something myself. Then let me find a specialist so that we all win. I don't mind splitting the commission at the end of the day because the client wins. If I find the
Right.
best situation for the client and the client win, we all win. So
Right.
they're gonna want to call us back because they know we know how to position them to win at the end of the day, and that's where we and that's I think a lot of times when you operate in a boutique firm, a lot of times you get you may feel like you're handcuffed that you got to do it all. And early on in your career, you start you kind of get that mindset you got to do it all, you got to do it all. But as you mature, you start realizing like delegation is your best friend. Specialists are very keen to your operation. So for us, like being specific in a niche, because I felt it was important for us to create a way to truly segue. Right? It's more challenging trying to come into an industry just saying I'm in the industry and nobody knows like exactly what you could even possibly be good at doing because you're so general, and then you're new in the industry, and then you haven't come in the industry traditionally, meaning that you didn't come in working for a major commercial firm already, a big firm, and you had experience working with a big firm, doing those corporate type transactions, and all of a sudden branched out and opened up your own firm. No, our segue into the industry was what I like to say almost like a complete kick the door down. Like, right, nobody really gave me no job, really, quote unquote offered me a job to come work with a firm, which is fine. But we in the game still. I've seen people even leave the game. We going through a global pandemic. I've been through another recession, and it's been challenging. But I think like the thing about it is like once you build roots and you plant your roots, like you stay firm, and you allow your the thing about when you think about trees and how trees grow down and they grow up at the same time, right? So they digging their roots down deep in the earth at the same time they growing up toward the sun. So they're the only thing that grow in the dark and at the same time seek the light and grow in the light at the same. They growing both in the dark and the light at the same time. So that's how I look at business and being an entrepreneur. Like you got to be able to grow in the dark and grow in the light at the same time. Like meaning like you got to deal with struggles and things that nobody may not know you're dealing with. You may have your bank account may be looking, scarcely, but you got to go put on and you got to go to work, because nobody really care about all that. Right. A customer is trying to have a problem solved. Right. You know what I mean? If you solve the problem, guess what? You get paid. Your bank account fills up, right? But if you wallowing in your problem, you wallowing in what's going on, if that's the reality you living in, then you transition that energy to your client. Like people feel that. People like and they feel that. So you come off as desperate, right? You don't come off as a solution-based person. You come off as somebody I need to get this deal done. And and now you rushing the transaction and you rushing the client to make it happen. And it ain't for the client interest, it's for your interest. And so you have to really understand like the levels of, ego identity and breaking it down to like you at the base level of humility. Because even as a tenant broker, for example, right, to people all the time, like we negotiate out. I think we're in the industry where like as a tenant broker, you can be negotiating against your own interests. My client in the best interest means that if I'm starting out and the square foot is say $20 a square foot, I'm trying to get my client in at $15 a square foot. I'm cutting my commission because I get paid off the transaction. I get paid off what that square foot cost. I cut my commission. I cut how much money come to me, so that my client get put in a better position. And so you have to reduce yourself to like it's nothing. It has nothing to do with you. You are a vessel for helping somebody fulfill the purpose that they have going on in their life. And it's a blessing that some transactions pay very well. So we're very thankful to do the job that puts us in position to win at the end of the day. And that's by putting clients in position to win.
Well, I have a couple of questions here in the chat
Yep.
from Stephanie.
Okay.
This first one is she says with not seeing, let me put it on the screen. With not seeing much representation, with what you have seen in totality, is there a different generation in that industry, even with the 2% representation?
So I'm gonna give credit to this program called REAP, which is the Real Estate Associates program, because I'm a 2016 graduate of REAP. And before I was engaged and enrolled in REAP, like I was always looking for the way in. Like, how do I get in? Like, who do I need to talk to? I was never really coming across, brokers that I would, that looked like me in the industry. Matter of fact, my first commercial mentor in the commercial industry was a energetic white lady who, I ended up meeting. I was working, at a sports performance facility out in Swanee. I had properties up in Swanee area. Met an agent. She introduced me to her mentor, who was a commercial broker for a company. She, because I guess because she saw I was working with athletes, she was really intrigued with what my interest was, and I told her I was interested in doing commercial. Introduced me to the young lady who said, "Man, I love to mentor you," and she brought me in and started mentoring me. I moved my license over to the firm that she worked with, and that's kind of how the process began to me. But she didn't even introduce me to the program of REAP. I actually just came across. I ended up seeing, I think, a flyer on REAP on social media somewhere, and said, "Let me dig into this." And the 2016 class that I was a part of was the first class that they brought back to Atlanta. And the program has, grown tremendously since. I say COVID really helped elevate it. And what REAP is it's like a 10-week program. It's a real estate program that's geared towards equipping like qualified minority candidates on all aspects of commercial real estate. So we were getting like classes and sessions from like high end, like executive C-level executives from different in different companies, and it was a great thing, and that's kind of what gave me the idea on what I needed to do. And but the thing about the program, in all the strengths that it had, the push for the program was kind of like to create like a hiring pool for the other firms to so that they can operate in their diversity push, like because they wanted to see diversity in the industry or whatever. And back to my own testimony, like who getting out of my own way. I thought I was pretty qualified. You know what I'm saying? The terms. I thought I can put the suit on. I can walk the corporate talk. I can get put the wing tips on. I can do all that if necessary. But that path didn't happen to me. And so what I see with REAP and what happened with COVID, COVID forced REAP to go hybrid, which increased the capacity of the classes. So now you had more people that were able to get the exposure to what the commercial real estate industry opened up to. So yes, to answer your question, I am seeing like new wave of generational talent that's coming into the industry. But I'm also seeing more of us actually, branch out and creating our own, situations, our own businesses as well. Because my opinion is right, you can only dent the industry if you how can you can only dent an industry if you can create the flow of people in the industry. Meaning for me, right, it'd have been great for me to go, in my opinion, to go work for a firm, a major firm. But I wouldn't have been able to hire nobody because I would have been working for them in a capacity as an agent, as an associate broker, working in a silo, working with a team, going out working accounts or whatever, right? So how would I be able? So you talk about the pressure, Charles, about the success part. I think the pressure to be successful in that capacity falls a little more heavy because you know the opportunity for others to be hired can fall on how successful or unsuccessful you are working for that firm. Meaning that they can feel like, well, we gave somebody a chance, they ain't really do much with it, so we ain't keen to go down that route no more, because of how you look, because of diversity quota, or feel like we inclusive in that capacity. So as a broker, you know, you have the capacity now to move the needle in the industry because you can hire people that look like you, and can't nobody tell you how many you can and can't hire. So if I want to deploy, people that look like me into the industry, I can control bringing them into the industry now. Training them and helping put them in situations and opportunities to help them grow their book of business and their portfolio. At the end of the day, but so that's in my opinion. Like, yes, I do see a new generation. But I'm in Atlanta too, and I do understand like Atlanta is a different anomaly just because our demographics of a city is a little bit different. So you're going to see a little more minority representation in Atlanta. And to be honest with you, that's still relative because I go to some meetings and I'm the only one. Hey, I'm the only one in there. Hey, y'all doing? So it's still you gotta find your niche and be able to work with all people, like, and know that it's not about quote unquote, as you say, Charles, black and white. It's about quality. Can you be in a room and add value, and be respected for the value that you bring to the table?
Another question is, I'll put that on the screen, is it better to enter into the industry the traditional way or the unconventional way?
I mean, well, I guess you talking to an unconventionalist because I came in unconventional, like, and I think so traditional would be uh, and let me paint a picture of quote unquote traditional. What tradition? Because tradition is a couple different ways to paint the picture of traditional. I get asked by residential agents or people looking to come to the industry like, hey, I want to do commercial eventually, and they think like they have to go and work with a residential firm, build a book of residential business, get a load of residential experience, and then all of a sudden say, hey, I'm ready to go do commercial real estate now. That's been the biggest mistake. That's been the biggest misnomer of coming into the industry that one can that's been out there, right? Um, Secondarily, like the traditional way, as you say, um, a commercial firm traditionally will hire out of college. They generally typically will hire graduates out of college. That way, because commercial real estate, when you work for the bigger firms, is considered to be more of a corporate real estate. So they may not even hire them straight out of college to come and do actual broker work or agent work. They bring them out of college to do so many different other aspects in the commercial industry, from analysts to they got people work behind the scenes in some of these firms. Some of these major firms are more full service, so they have other things like property management. They have facilities management. They have maintenance. They got so many other divisions that they encompass. So that traditional way is another way to come into the commercial side. Now, unconventional, and what I would say, let me say another traditional way. This is another traditional way that is not out, that's not quote unquote heard of traditionally. Like, and you don't have to real estate. You have to know how you want to do business. You have to know what level of business transaction you desire to do. If you have more corporate relationships, if you have business relationships, friends with businesses, friends who operate from a business mindset, you have a network of individuals who operate in a quote unquote business operational capacity. Like, you very well could niche yourself into a commercial space because now you have a spirit of influence that can help you, begin to turn other opportunities into, favorable opportunities for you. Um, Saying like I'm gonna go do residential real estate and then transition into commercial real estate, it's probably gonna make it more difficult for you to enter into commercial real estate because the bigger firms aren't really looking to transition residential agents into commercial agents. Um, I started out like I call myself starting out, wanting having a desire to be that, safe haven for those agents that wanted to make that transition from residential into commercial. It was I want to say it was part of my unconventional path, but my mindset was always set on doing commercial. But I walked that path of the unconventional way of doing it by working for residential firms. And I think one of the last residential firms I worked with, once I finished the REAP program, I actually approached them on looking to just try. I was trying to actually open up a commercial division for them and operate their commercial division for that firm, and they declined the opportunity, which was another reason for me to say, hey, I just felt like it was divine order for me to eventually create my own situation and move forward in that capacity. So conventional mindset and but understand like the must we bring into the industry. Because I also tell people when they ask me like how what's the best way for me to come into the commercial space, I often say like, well, what are you currently doing now, and how can you possibly add a layer of business conversation to what you're currently doing to say, say for example, you were you work for a doctors, you've been a nurse or worked in the medical field for years on top of years, and say all of a sudden I want to become a commercial, do commercial real estate. Then you can easily like begin that by working your network of doctors and professionals in the medical space and create a small niche in the medical space, working with doctors or individuals in that space. That's just how I suggest sometimes like you can use a strength that you already have and segue to an industry by using the network that you already have, and versus coming in and trying to just create a complete new sphere of influence. Use what you have and step it from there.
So tell us, how does your entrepreneurial background influence the way you serve your clients?
I think my entrepreneurial background is really like it's a great part of it because uh, once I created the restaurant more, I created it with the intent of serving entrepreneurs because you know going through that process of opening up my own shops and doing my own brick and mortar locations. I just realized like, man, it's a lot of people might need help doing this. Like it's a lot of moving parts with opening up a business. And I tell people like sometimes, you can get to a situation where like, it's so many stages of even getting open, right? I tell people like if you can get open, man, you win it. Like if you get open, you open for a year, you won, right? And, so it's like measuring like the relativeness of what success look like, and how to help people understand like it's not easy opening up a location. You had to have the capital. You had to have like it's so much take place with the timing of everything. Like from the time you are going through the due diligence of, you know, finding the location, finding, making sure the municipality is going to cooperate with what you are trying to do from a permitting perspective. Making sure the landlord is going to cooperate with how you have a desire to operate that business. If you're looking to do a lease, like the permitting, the licensing. Then you got the contractors. You got to make sure your contractors lined up in a way that they can come in and start your build out in a way that they can be finished with your build out efficiently because you got inspections that take place throughout that process. And so, obviously we try to do our best job of getting them as much time as necessary to go through those processes because once you sign at least the clock ticket, like you're gonna have to start paying rent in a short amount of time. And ideally, like we want you to operate from a position of strength where like you ready to operate, you ready to move your business forward before that time frame comes. You don't want to be still building out and now your lease coming in, like because now you about to operate in the red. And so we try to do our best to keep clients out of those positions. And so my background, you know, helps because I'm to get a location if I don't feel like you're already ready. Like even if I want a space, I need a space. If you got this certain urgency, and then I start asking for certain things, to help me move you forward, and you don't have certain things for me, to help you move forward, then I start looking at like you're not really ready yet, And my advice a lot of times is, I don't have a desire to see you having to operate your business at your cash register. Meaning that, you have a business plan you created, it's perfect on paper, but now you gotta put people, you gotta put human resources in some of these positions. And now you have to like operate this business, hoping that the numbers come in, hoping that you drive the business, drive the flow so that you can cash flow in a way that you can pay all your bills and you can pay your employees. And if you don't have like the capital stacked from, whether it's a loan or a line of credit or something where you can, float the business, you don't, and you going in without, savings or going in without that capital behind you, you can operate, but you're gonna be operating against the wall. And so I think my entrepreneur experience is try to help them prevent that as much as possible, because we just never know what is gonna happen when it comes to like the process. I mean, I had a situation where like we thought the client was gonna be in within 3 months. The landlord come up with some arbitrary obstacle that slowed the process down. And now they can't open up. They got deliveries that they trying to time, equipment and things to being delivered. Now it'll throw helping them prepare for as much as that is possible, because I can't control all of it. All I can do is try to help them be prepared for the hiccups to come, but I don't know what they are. And but I because each individual, like I say, like your plan is, your path is your path, and so like whatever happens is for your good. It's just a matter of what that is. Um, and so all I can do is try to help you mentally be prepared for whatever that might look like. And going through it and going through the ups and downs of entrepreneurship, the wins and the losses, helps balance that emotional component to what they have to do moving forward.
So, what makes your approach to commercial real estate different from traditional brokerage models?
Um, I think that niche of serving like the people, um, recognizing like the one of the purposes of me getting the licenses and operating in the niche, like and knowing like once some of those what I would consider corporate firms didn't hire me, didn't bring me on. I understood like the niche that they serve, like they the companies that they were working for the most part they were engaging with. And I was began like as a small as a business owner myself. I started realizing that I thought it was a niche of business owners that just did not know like a level of representation was available to them, to go into some of these transactions to help put them in the best position moving into like some of these site selection, these facilities or some of these locations or whatever. So just understanding that, and again like creating that bridge of uh, brokerage and business brokerage allows us to really analyze and see what will work best for a particular client. What that looks like, for example, is whether or not like you have a great idea, right, and you want to open up from the ground up. You got a great idea you want to create, and open up from the ground up, and we start looking for a location for what you desire to do. But then come to the realization based on your capital stat, based on your skill set. What about if we start looking for a cash flowing business in your industry, something that's already cash flowing, that is already turning business that we can use the money that you was going to use to build out. You can get an SBA loan and for your down payment, and now you can own a business that's already cash flowing or whatever. So being able to walk a path with a client to say this may be a better option, a better opportunity. And transition them over into possibly something that a business that is already cash flowing. Having that flexibility to create those types of strategies, I think something that gives us like a unique advantage, and gives us a niche that is relatively unique, because again we big enough to serve serve you, but we also, small enough to say, hey, if we need to, engage a specialist to help you accomplish this goal, we can go out and we can find like what we need to help you, accomplish what you need to accomplish, and be well with, handing that transaction, over to someone who can, get it to the finish line.
So let's transition over to your business coaching and strategic advising. What led you to expand your work into business coaching and education?
So a lot of the business owners I work with, a lot of tenant rep brokerage for it, it begins with a lot of coaching because again, the niche we were serving was a lot of people who were kind of like starting up businesses who really like didn't have like the resources to, help them formulate and understand like what it would take. They just had ideas and, ideas, great ideas, good ideas, but um we needed to be able to help package those ideas in a way that we can move them forward, in a way. And so some of the things, one of the ways that I was able to kind of like transition is working, transition that into, I was working with Emory. Emory had a program called the Start Me program, which we worked with. It was a incubator for small business owners. And so I was a mentor for that program. And so even through that program, I just began seeing like, man, people like they need like aspects of coaching to help take them to that next level. Um, and the education piece kind of came in because, again, we're a boutique firm, and if I'm bringing people into the industry, and I need to get them up to speed on what that looks like, to be in the industry, you know, unconventionally, like how can I train them? How can I get them, the knowledge, at least the vocabulary to go out and have conversations with individuals based on, what it is that we were doing. And so, I created a class, you know, for the principles, it's called the principles of commercial real estate. And I want to, is to teach individuals about just the different representation and brokerage types that we're taking off. And so that kind of coincide with just, aspects of the coaching, which the coaching is probably going to take off even further once the book be dropping probably here. Uh, and that book
Is
is
this another one?
this the one I think I was telling you about, the 10 rules of entrepreneurship. Answer your call, live your dream. Yeah,
Great.
that'll be coming out here real soon. It's with the publisher now, and so yeah, man, it's gonna be a great opportunity for individuals who are really looking to find their purpose in entrepreneurship. To it's a guide on helping you really understand, like, you can do anything you set your mind to, but make sure you're doing what you've been divinely called to do. And that way you kind of can put yourself in the best position, in my opinion. That's just my opinion. I think it's worked out, been working for me. I don't know, might not be working out well for everybody, but it worked out for it's working out for my overall purpose. And that looks different for everybody. At the end of the day, you have to be appreciative of what that can look like for you.
Well, we've got a comment here from CRE Chronicles. I put this on the screen.
My
That
boy,
looks
what's up
like
with you?
blue diamonds.
That's my dog. Hey, that man making that's he making moves in the industry. That's one of my brothers who we get together from time to time, just trying to really stay together as brothers in the industry. Because we have to, come, stay together. And I'm always proud to see my brothers. He's been killing it this year, man. Last year, I know he killing it again this year. I'm so proud to see him doing well. Appreciate you, my dog.
So let me just ask you a follow-up question to that last one, because what I think is so interesting is, when you stepped out on your faith, to start from the barber to the management company, to transitioning into grooming, to go into real estate, commercial real estate at that, being underrepresented, Being successful and building out with several branches to your brand, and knowing to get into commercial real estate, there's just this limitation because there's not much representation of people that look like you. Can you tell us, how were you able to manage to put together such a successful plan, being that, as they say, you are the minority in this industry? And as difficult as it is to go through so many obstacles to keep you from jumping the hurdle, which you jumped anyway. Tell us, what was that? How were you able to put all of this in this package like this that's
Man,
still running right now?
man, that's a good question, man. I'm gonna be honest. Like this answer, this answer might this might ruffle my political connects, as they say. Man, I canceled all the plans. I don't have no plans. I gave it all to God, to be honest with you. Cause I just like every time I made a plan, it just did not. My my plans don't. It's I think they'd be good ideas, but he always put me in a position where it'd be better than what I thought. So my thing is stay in position, stay ready, and stay willing. Because I, I mean, the plan shoot was to I didn't know how many multi-millions over by now. That was my plan, but but I just want to stay rooted, as they say, stay on. I want to stay on the post. I want to stay connected to where he was calling me. Ever since I heard that the call, I got called into the barber game. I heard that voice so clearly. Like for me, I just thought like I try to operate. I try to create plans per se because I know people like to see stuff like that in writing. They want to see that you got a direction that you're going into. And I started coming to this place where like, man, the ultimate power is just really like trusting like what he has for you. Like I can sit here and be like, man, I want to do 10 deals a year. I want all of them to be $1 million deals. Like I can sit here and strategize like how many people I got to talk to, like, how many phone calls I got to make a day. Like I go through all the analytics and none of it pale into like knowing you in the right place at the right time, knowing he putting you in the right positions when you need to be there, knowing you meeting the right people when you need to meet them. So the plan is just to be present. Plan is to be willing. The plan is to operate with the integrity of knowing that, man, he got your back. Like it's I can't help but talk like this, dog, because it's just been so much part of my journey. Like, you know what I mean? Like I've been through so much of, we won some, we lost some, like, you know what I mean? Like it's been up, it's been down, but it's been steadily knowing that it's you doing something that he continually project you and take you to another level as long as you continue to, do the work, do the self work, do the work that like, I would love to say like, man, my plan was to be working probably for a municipality right now. In the next 5 years, I might be a director of economic director somewhere. I mean, but I don't know. Like honestly, like my thing is, man, I'm interested to see how I unfold myself. To be honest with you, that's my plan. But I'm gonna stay on post, and I'm gonna stay diligent, and I'm gonna stay consistent doing what we have to do. I'm gonna stay in position, and whatever happens and whatever he's sending me, I know it's gonna be great, and I'm gonna operate in that capacity. And that's just Man, that's just the best way. That's just how I move, man. I've been out here so long, dog, as an entrepreneur. Um, it's I consider entrepreneurship the ultimate test of faith. To be honest with you, like because sometimes you just never know. Um, I still have clients that I still groom, honestly, and I can leave out one day and say, man, I don't know who I'm gonna deal with today. I don't, nobody called me yesterday to schedule an appointment today and get the one I'm supposed to be, and I get 4 phone calls. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like 5 phone like, so I just kind of, it's a strange lifestyle, man. I wouldn't risk, I wouldn't wish it on nobody if they ain't ready for it. I mean, I don't know how ready I am for it, to be honest with you. I'm just pushing, and I'm just thankful to operate in that capacity, man, for sure.
Well, it sounds like resilience to me
Absolutely.
because I mean, when it's definitely can't be in the absolute,
Right.
but to be present is to be ready, as you mentioned earlier. So if you're always ready, and it like can be like just open air, but then all of a sudden it gets cluttered and all of this is falling your way. You have to be ready, as you say, but also you've
Absolutely.
got to be resilient because when those down times are there, I mean, there's no telling how long they may be. But
Absolutely.
if you stay up, that means that there's something that you're doing, that brings this your way. So if you don't mind telling us, what do you think the secret sauce is? If you don't, if you don't want to tell us directly.
uh Man, the secret sauce. I don't know. I'm just I think I think go back to that humility piece, man. To understand, like, the key to humility is understanding, like, I ain't better than nobody else, but understanding, like, I'm unique in my own. I'm unique in my purpose for being here. And when you can operate with that and understanding that you're unique, you know that you have something, a divine, aura or something about you that continues to attract. What they say is law of attraction. But as I hear one of my pastors say, you don't attract what you want, you attract what you are. And so, from a deeper hermeticism perspective, like, that's the law, law of vibration, like the vibration of, like, what are you vibrating, like. And I just like to, believe that I vibrate, from a frequency of peace, abundance. I try to be loving. I'm a Virgo, so that can go a different way. That can go that can go many different ways.
Without us, there was no world because I'm a Virgo.
Amen. So that can go. You push them buttons too many ways. That can be something completely different for you. So pray for me on that. I'm working on me, my inner self. But I just I'm just thankful, man. Of you know, uh, Man, I don't have no choice but to put it on, some higher than me, because I think, like, if I was to try to be banking on what I think my skill set should have done or should be producing or whatever, it may be. I'd be thinking I should have flown to the moon and back by now a couple of times, but I'm thankful that he just kind of keep me in position, man, keep me humble enough to operate in a willing capacity. And I think that just being willing is what continues to attract opportunities. I was telling somebody, one of my friends earlier today. I said, "Oh no, I keep getting opportunities that if they execute, I can't tell nobody that he was the one that did it, because they unconventional, and they people seeing someone will be impossible, but I don't think that anything is really impossible. I just think it's a matter of if it's ready to operate in that, if it's the timing, for that particular thing to operate in. So just a matter of the right time. So I mean, I don't know. I'm thankful for whatever it is. I'm thankful.
So let's talk a little bit about 10 rules to entrepreneurship.
Okay.
What inspired you to write this book, 10 Rules to Entrepreneurship?
So the inspiration for the 10 rules of entrepreneurship, man. I started when I closed my groom allowing the spa in Buckhead. As they were moving the stuff out the building, we were going to put stuff in storage. Man, it's like the same voice that told me to turn that barbershop. Like, it hit me, like, while I was sitting on back in this U-Haul truck. Why do you catch a load of stuff up? And I got a book for you. I want you to write this book about entrepreneurship, the rules of entrepreneurship. So this kind of thing that had happened to me up at that point, right? I had like, so the Kings of Atlanta was my second opportunity to be in ownership of my grooming of a shop. My first opportunity, like, it was, it was from what I thought was, it was kind of ideal. But I started seeing like some chinks in it, moving forward. That's when I created my business management firm, the J. Rushman Group. But it was certain things that happened to me throughout that process that I just felt like I could, going back to becoming a broker, doing commercial real estate, just things I thought that could add, to the experience of entrepreneurship. On top of, how did I end up being behind this barber chair? You talk about plans, right? Like that was my plan. Like I had no plan of of being behind a barber chair, working in the barber shop. I mean, I was cutting my friends' hand in the dorm while I was in college. I had my good friends, I was, seeing about them. Nothing like the clientele that I, was able to establish while working in the shop or whatever. But that just was not a part of my plan. And so um that that whole trajectory of my life happened because what I felt like a call that I answered. Hearing him say turning that shop light was like him calling me to do something beyond what I had planned to do myself, right? And so it was bigger than me. So, once I kind of got into it, and started experiencing, clients from a different level. I had one guy come in to the shop when I was working in Buckhead. His daughter was, in the shepherd's, just to hear his reaction to us grooming him. And, he was just in such down spirit when he came into the shop. And, see this man, feel better just, behind that grooming experience, kind of let me know that, you ain't got to ask God for no more power. He gave you everything you need. You just got to use what you have. And so it kind of, all these experiences like culminated into like me, I started voice recording, like just I just started voice recording like what this was gonna be about. It took me some time to complete it. And I kind of have had it completed, what I would say, for a while. I was telling my son this. I was telling my son about, divine timing. I was talking to him about divine timing. I was like, man, the book kind of been finished, but I think is, truly divine timing, as far as like, getting ready to come out now. I was like, if I would have put it out 2 years ago, I was like, it was things that I hadn't experienced on the spiritual walk that, I wouldn't be able to add, the value to it when talking about the book now. And so I'm thankful just for that timing. And even like my publisher, like, she was kind of she working on getting it, getting the link up to Amazon. And I don't know, she was experiencing some technical difficulties, I think, doing it. But my assurance to her was like, look, man, whatever you experience, it ain't really you probably. It's just the time. So I'm cool with the timing. Like when you get it done, I know it's gonna be the right time for it to be done, and we'll be able to launch and release. I mean, my plan was to have it ready before you tonight to put in your chat, but it ain't ready yet. So
Mhm.
I'll get back to you, and maybe it'll be ready when you launch the magazine by the end of the month. So have it for you by the end.
So, which rule do you believe entrepreneurs struggle with the most?
Believing in themselves and believing in what it is they call to do, believing that it can
Mhm.
happen for them. But I think belief is the biggest struggle. But lack of belief is the number one reason why people ain't even moved on their dreams right now,
Mhm.
because they don't believe. They don't believe it's meant for them. They see it happen for everybody else. Social media being a catalyst to accelerating what the lifestyle looks like, and you know when you kind of operating in, again, your identity. A lot of people adopt what they do as their identity, like, and so they don't see themselves outside of that identity that they have established themselves from being, based off of, life. This is what I do, so this is what I am. But you more than that. And it's something in you that's trying to get out. But fear of success and fear of failure, both feed into lack of belief. Those are like the number one ingredients, the fuel to lack of belief. So if you can conquer the belief that it can be you, and just following that passion, that dream, or that call was been placed on you, everything else take care of itself. And that, a lot of times, like, people don't have people in their sphere that can help them in a way to take it to the next level. So people don't know who they might need to align with. It's a chapter on partnership in the 10 Rules book, like, talking about alignment, finding the right partner, you know, having, having the right business opportunity, you know, understanding that all money might not be the money for you, based on what you might have to give up for that money. At the end of it. So I think, yeah, belief, and the fear that fuels that non-belief is, I think, the number one reason why people don't move on their entrepreneurial dream.
And final question for you. Um, how did writing the book deepen your own understanding of entrepreneurship?
Man, it really put in perspective, um, for me, like, just how much faith it takes to move on, a dream or a call, how much faith you actually live by. Um, and a lot of times, sometimes people may not even recognize that's what they're actually living off of. But sometimes to not know what's gonna happen, to not know to the totality when a deal gonna close or if it's gonna get to the finish line. And that's just our industry. Like, other industries, some things are a little more substantiated, like, because they operate different. Like, for example, like, you can have a plumbing company, and you operating in a service that, it goes as well as you go. And, it goes on as many calls as you can take, or as much as you can scale by bringing on assistants to do other jobs that, while you doing a job, somebody else doing a job. So in my world, it's transaction based. So we got to get to the end. We got to get to the finish line to get paid, which is, challenging for a lot of entrepreneurs. It's like that too, because they don't know, like, even if you open up a brick and mortar location, right? Like, it's take if somebody come in. You might have a slow, what's keeping you going? What's going to keep you fighting to keep your business open? Like, it's more than you got to pay bills. It's faith. You're operating in a spirit of faith that some kind of way it's going to work out. You believe in, even you might not even know you believe in, but you believe in something bigger than yourself. And I think, like, that's one of the biggest things that I was able to take away through the process of writing a book. It brought me back to a place of, again, humility, because I've gone through the losses. I've gone through some losses and gone through some things that some people may not bounce back from, and it'll traumatize you. If you open up a business, losing the business, closing the business, a business not working out, as successful as you had desired or planned for it to work out, it could traumatize you. Some people may go back to working corporate or trying to find corporate but it could easily just be a preparation for you, getting into that lane that is designed for you to be in. It may not be you lack entrepreneurial skills. It may just be you may not be in your lane, that you should be in to operate in entrepreneurship. So alignment is everything again.
So, in closing, what are some words of wisdom and encouragement that you'd like to leave with our audience? Tell them how to connect with you via your social media, your website, how to get the book, all of those good things.
Absolutely, man. Charles, in closing, once again, I want to give you the greatest appreciation for the opportunity to have a conversation with you on your platform. It's always intriguing. I enjoy the quality of what you do. It's always refreshing to have quality dialogue, especially about business and about positioning us in our culture, our people, in these niche markets. Words of inspiration. I would just say, if you're an entrepreneur, aspire entrepreneur, business owner, or someone looking to endeavor and take that leap of faith into whatever that call is for you, by all means, just be vigilant about it. Be resilient about what that looks like. Find, do the inner work. Find out, from your inner self. Close your eyes, meditate, find what it is that you're purpose to be doing out here. We come to this dimension, to fulfill a soul purpose. And if entrepreneurship provides you the platform to operate from a position of power, because it gives you the creativity to shape what it is that you are uniquely designed to be here doing, in this dimension. So, I'm here for you. I want to see you win. My desire is to support you the best way I possibly can. By all means, follow me if you choose on social media platforms. I'm all of them at James B. Kynes Jr. As you see written on the bottom of the screen right there, I can give you my full government. I ain't really running and hiding from nobody. So you can definitely follow me there. You can our real estate firm is Rushman Moore, REG. That's RushmanMooreg. You can follow that page too. You can actually probably get to that link through my bio on my personal pages as well. So reach out, DM. I love to help you, love your service, your business. I am looking for some businesses for sale. So if you know anybody looking to sell a business, let me know. I do have qualified buyers. Money together too. Let's do that.
Well, before I close,
Okay.
I want to tell you thank you and how much I appreciate you for being back. With the updates of all the great things that are happening and how you're continuing to flourish and be a great example in the community and the community help for what it is to keep it as strong as possible. For those of you that are following us or watching on any of our 8 streaming channels, especially our YouTube channels, if you could please support us by subscribing and enabling all notifications, it will allow you to get the shows live when they go live. And you'll also give you the opportunity to go back to any of those channels, and you'll be able to watch all of the episodes that we've ever done and get the messages of all the great positivity that people that look like you and I have contributed not just to their communities, but creating, well, what they're also contributing to society today. This is what we're going to need to unite to keep going and to continue getting strong. Um, my closing monologue is this. Tonight's conversation reminds us that entrepreneurship is not just about ambition, it's about alignment. It's about building with intention, choosing with clarity, and moving with purpose. James B. Kynes Jr. has shown us that real estate, business strategy, and personal calling are all interconnected. When you understand your purpose, you can build with precision. When you understand your value, you can negotiate with confidence. And when you understand your vision, you can create a business that not only survives, but thrives. To everyone listening, your dream is valid, your vision is necessary, and your purpose is waiting on your execution. Build boldly, build intentionally, build with strategy. This is American Black and White. I'm your host, Charles Zachary King, and thank you for joining us. Good night. You have a great evening. Thank you, James.